7th. And if you would like to get technical, college football kicks off tonight. Greg McElroy is in his car somewhere. How are you, Greg?
I'm just curious what game's tonight. Do I need to dial in?
It's not going to be the easier ones to find. But
if I can find the EFA, I can find college football. We can figure it out.
You have 20 games on ESPN Plus tonight. You'll get starting at 5 o'clock tonight, Maine at Towson, Stony Brook at Delaware State. Those two not going to be televised. But you have Mercyhurst at Youngstown State, Ohio Dominican at Morehead State, Glenville State at Elon. That one not on ESPN Plus, by the way. Eastern Illinois at Murray State, Lafayette at Georgetown, Gardner-Webb at Austin Peay, Charleston Southern at Lindenwood. The great Kevin Stadenka played at Lindenwood. Chattanooga at West Georgia, UVA Wise at Presbyterian, Winona State at St. Thomas, Houston Christian at Southeast Louisiana, Anderson, South Carolina. Burt Newton wrestled there. At Furman, Mississippi Valley State at Nichols, Southern Illinois at West Florida, Concord at Davidson, Central Arkansas at UT Martin. It's the South Dakota Mines taking on Drake, Long Island University at North Dakota, and Louisiana Christian at Northwestern State. There you go.
Without looking at every single SEC schedule right in front of me, because I don't think in the matter of time, in order to build up the game slate tonight, I'm going to be able to cross-reference those teams play SEC teams, but I'm going to take a gander. I'm going to go off and I'm going to say that there is a handful of teams that will be in action tonight that might play against your team in the next 3 or 4 weeks. Is that a fair and accurate depiction?
That is fair. That is accurate.
So maybe worth watching. Just saying, just a little due diligence.
There's a couple you could go out there and grab.
That could be going down. Yeah,
no
why
doubt.
not?
And then tomorrow night, you'll get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 more FCS games. 4 of those will be on ESPN Plus, and then Idaho at Cal Poly is at 9 o'clock on ESPN tomorrow night. So live tackle football from a college perspective is back tonight. By the way, Youngstown is minus 28.5 against Mercyhurst at home.
Whoa.
Southeast Louisiana minus 24.5 against Houston Christian.
Ulana?
At home. Nichols is minus 29.5 against Mississippi Valley State. I remember reading some of the Delta Devils bad box scores of the day last year. I might have to roll with Nichols on that one.
Really?
We'll be okay.
I do remember that. I do remember those occasionally. Delta Devils, one of the better mascots in the game.
There's no
Love
doubt.
that one.
All right, the big news in the last couple of days has been what is happening really off the field in college football, and the SEC statement that we read yesterday enacted a lot of reaction. Further details are coming out from behind the scenes, Greg, of what the SEC is actually doing, making it a rule that you cannot go grab players that have, one, entered the draft and not correctly removed their names, which I still see people missing because I've seen a lot of people saying, well, so-and-so can come play. He never signed a pro contract. But that entered the draft part without removing your name in the manner in which they want you to, I think is going to be more complicated than people think. There are a lot of people that are completely bypassing that. So if you entered a draft and didn't get drafted, based on the way the statement read, you can't play, correct? That would be against the rules for you to play.
I think it's a bit of a provision with the NBA.
All right, we'll try to reconnect with Greg here in a few minutes and see if he can join the show. But Mark Schlabach is reporting for ESPN that there are going to be penalties for attempting to do this, because if you read some of the stuff coming out of Louisiana, whether it's from Governor Jeff Landry or people who say that they've talked to people inside the building, some of these guys are still hanging around, and it's still very feasible, very possible that they could try to play. But Mark Schlabach, along with Pete Thamel, are reporting some of the penalties that could be possible for attempting to do this. A 1/2 season suspension for the coach that attempts to pull this off. Half of a season that a coach is potentially going to miss.
Half.
Half of a season.
Half. about that. 6 games. My question, though, if the salaries are being paid by the school, are you hitting the coach in the pocketbook? Does the SEC say you cannot pay that guy for these 6 games if he's not on the field?
Well, you're hitting the school, though, because if you lose games, you're going to lose revenue and then maybe have to pay a buyout for firing your coach.
True. And also,
trickle down,
back
Greg.
to the original.
Trickle down effect.
Hit them where it hurts, right? That's what we've always said. And the SEC ultimately is the one that's cutting the checks to the institutions. And I think that that's about the only thing that'll get the institutions' attention now is to hit them in the pocketbook, which is wild because that's like the pro mindset. But pro in many ways has trickled down to college in some ways.
Well, it's a lot of ways where we are right now. Speaking of financial, another rule that Mark Schlabach lays out that would be potential for this, a fine of 50% of that sport's budget, which if we're talking football or men's basketball, that is a large check, especially football on the front end of that.
That's not just a line item that you can just cross out and say, we'll recoup that somewhere else. That's not something you can just overcome with ease.
I mean, even going to your favorite booster on that one, I think is going to be somewhat troublesome.
Depending on the booster, I'm not sure Phil Knight is going to be too concerned with, $40 million if that's what it takes.
Well, let's look at some detail here. Okay, let's pay close attention to these words. A fine that matches 50% of the sport's annual budget. Is that specific to the school that is maybe being highlighted in a lot of this discussion right now? Not that other budgets wouldn't be high, not that other budgets wouldn't be a lot, but which school has gone BANANAS on their budget for football this year? More so than any other.
I don't know, Cole. Who are you considering?
Well, there's only one school we've talked about money with involved in their program the entire offseason. So, yeah.
And I also think, too, and you highlighted the conspiracy theory that is Lane did this so others wouldn't. I don't know. I don't know the realities of this. All I know is this is the only way to actually enforce change is to threaten at the conference level a financial penalty. And that's the only thing that's going to get these administrations' attentions now because they're all in a bit of a silo. Everyone's individual now. It's no longer all for one for all in the SEC. Everyone's kind of rowing in their own direction in an effort to make the most money. So the only way to penalize is to take money away and to just basically put a ton of fear in the administration and think that they'll be operating with a half-full deck moving forward.
Absolutely. Also, a revocation of voting rights for league policies would also take place for that school, which can be important. I don't think that there are too many things that the universities inside, I'll say any league, Greg, that they vote on that 1 or 2 votes is really going to sway things. Most items, the majority of things that pop up, I think these schools are pretty much in line with together. But still, I mean, you want to have your voice heard, and there are certain things that maybe a vote or 2 could sway. That would be important as well, to be able to have that taken away, which is also important because it's now being reported that this vote was not 16-0. It was unanimous, but unanimous of the 15 administrators who voted, that LSU essentially abstained from voting, which is why we were all surprised that it was basically unanimous, but now we know it wasn't a 16-person unanimous vote. It was 15 because LSU sat out.
Which is probably how I'd approach it, too. There'd be too much of a paper trail to tie them to it. It's understandable. Just we'll sit this one out and see where everyone else goes. That way you're not going to hear from the governor because you went with the rest of the Southeastern Conference. So probably the right way of approaching it.
Yeah, it's and you think about what you were going to do in-house if you're the LSU administration there, and like we talked about yesterday, how are you handling this? You know what your coach is doing, but you're just saying, hey, we're done. We're voting for you to not be able to do the things that you've been doing. It felt backwards when we discussed it yesterday, but obviously there's a little bit more clarity now. as to how that thing went. So you guys give us your feedback on this entire situation, where the SEC is on some of these rules. 205-834-9450. You can text in. You can also call him, 205-834-9450. Got a good show for you today. Charles Kelly's Jacksonville State Gamecocks kick off this weekend. He'll join us at 7:30. UNA plays Samford at Joe Davis Stadium Saturday night, which is really cool. Joe Davis Stadium, the stadium that gave Jose Canseco his nickname, Parkway Jose, because he used to hit balls on the South Memorial Parkway there. But they've renovated that stadium and turned it into a beautiful soccer and football facility. And those two teams going to play there Saturday night. We'll have Brent Dearman on, UNA head football coach, at 9:30 today. And obviously our coach, Wimp Sanderson, joins us at 9. But a lot to get to, a lot to discuss. But I like what I'm hearing coming out of the Southeastern Conference, Greg, as far as laying down rules that are going to matter. I understand where you go saying, hey, why not just hit the coach in the pocketbook? Fair, I get that. But when you're hitting the school's athletic budget to that extent, there can't be any administrators that are going to be on board with this anymore. The juice is not going to be worth the squeeze. The risk is not going to be worth it for some of these schools to even attempt this. And it sounds like some are still potentially going to.
Well, my thing is how challengeable, right? Every single penalty that's been put forth in the last couple of years, it feels like it's been challenged in a court, and oftentimes decided in a local court by a judge with partisan fandom. So are these rules challengeable? That's the question I have, and I'm sure that's probably what the SEC is trying to look into as well.
No, and I think, too, that's why some of these things were done in a certain way, and how some of these things were done. And that's remember yesterday when we read the statement of what they had signed off on, and maybe LSU feels like they'll have a loophole because they didn't vote, possibly. But the last line of the statement released by the SEC was the commissioner is authorized to enforce this expectation with penalties against member institutions. Remember, you voted on that. You voted that to be allowed. So that, to me, and again, I'm not a legal expert, would make that very difficult to challenge, because now the league can go back and say, well, no, 15 of you are on board voting for this, which is by far the majority, that I have the power to be able to go do this.
Right.
How do you challenge that? You agreed to it. You allowed it. So,
it's fair.
Yeah. We know there are going to be lawyers still.
Yeah, of course there will be. But answer me this. Like, at what point is the juice worth the squeeze? Like, I think Daquan Wright's a heck of a player. I think Junior Tuialamaka can help him. I think Xavier Harris, anytime you got depth at D tackle, like, that's a good thing. But seriously, at the end of the day, is the juice worth the squeeze on some of these situations? Like, what are we doing?
Not even close. This is beginning to move into the Texas Tech conversation that we had of, yeah, Brennan Sorsby's a really good quarterback. Is it worth all of this? Is it worth this level of distraction? Is it worth this level of disruption? Is it worth this level of conversation? Is it worth all of the extra stuff that's now going on with your program? And I don't think this is exact because of position and maybe level of skill, but I'm with you. You and I have talked about Daquan Wright for 2 years now. And we have tried to tell people how much he means to that program. And you need to watch 8 because he helps a ton. Made a lot of big catches in big moments. Xavier Harris was an absolute disruptor. Now, does he have his flaws? Yeah, that's probably why he's not going to make an NFL roster. Plays a little bit too high. Effort fades. He disappears a little bit. But when he's going, and he's a problem.
Yeah.
So
he's a presence.
Yeah. Are they worth it to the extent of can they help? 100%. Are they worth it to the extent of all this other stuff going on? I think it's a fair question. And you need to be locked in on your season right now. Guys don't need to be on their phone saying, is he coming in? Are we going to get that guy? Are we going to add him to the roster? Are we going to have to worry about him? Like, that's just – and if you did it the way that, let's say, South Carolina did, and you go get a DB from App State that we literally read it as a one-liner for 11 seconds during the show, and then we move on, and we go back to regularly scheduled programming on what South Carolina could be when we do talk about them, fine. No big deal. But when it's this kind of stuff every single day, there are guys in that facility that are looking left, looking right, being like, what are we doing? Like, I'm talking players. I'm talking about players especially. Just because like I do, we're curious. When you're a player and you see a guy not show up for a workout, or you see a guy not in a meeting, like every red alarm, siren light goes off in your brain in that building. You're like, what in the heck is going on with so-and-so? And then everybody starts asking everybody. And then you want to know from the other guy. When you see that a player may be added, you don't think that text room and that position group starts going crazy? What are we going to do? What does that mean for me? And you got 2 true freshman D tackles that are supposed to play a significant role for you. You don't think those guys are like, what is this all about?
Right. I often wonder, though, how much of this is just placating to the fans? Like, giving off the impression that we will do whatever it takes. And I really wonder that, because I do think fans nowadays are very influential, more so than maybe ever before, because they vote with their checkbook. And if you are riling up the fans and giving off an indicator that no matter what, we're going to do whatever it takes to put LSU where it needs to be to win a championship again, to be competitive year over year and all this other stuff, look at what we're willing to do. Look at the extent we're willing to go to. So I just wonder, like, how much of this is an appeal to the fans that are like, man, these guys will do whatever it takes for us, just for us. They'll go scorched earth and be the biggest enemy in college football. But guess what? For us, they're willing to go to the end of the earth. Like, is there something to that, you think? There's got to be.
I think there could be, without a doubt. And I think there's probably a lot more happening behind the scenes of this. I mean, CBS is reporting that apparently Lane had a heavier hand in trying to go get some of these guys to leave and come play, which I would ask the question, Greg, do we care? Is that significant? I mean, honestly, I don't. If it was going to be within the rules, I don't care if he's going to the EFA, to arena ball, to recruit guys. If it's within the rules, what do we care what he's doing to get them? Like, does that really hurt people's feelings? I didn't really understand why that was a deal yesterday, and people were mad at that. But if it's within the rules, so what if he's instigating guys leaving? Especially if he knows they're probably not going to make a team. So
I don't have a problem with it. It doesn't bother me a lick. Like, to me, all is fair in love and war, and recruiting is war. Like, it's just like I don't, and that's why I've never gotten mad at the tampering or like that's just the way the game is played, and it's uncomfortable for some, and frankly, that's part of the reason why I would never be a college head coach, because I would have a hard time sleeping at night sometimes because of the things the things you have to do in order to sometimes get guys. Like I'd be a nervous wreck. I'd have anxiety 24/7, but I can't blame anyone for trying, so that doesn't make me mad. It's just the fact that the rule was not put in place beforehand, and once again, we're trying to pick up the pieces to some loopholes that schools are able to find. Like, it should not be that surprising that this was tried. It also should not be that surprising of Lane's involvement or whoever's involvement. It doesn't really matter to me. All I'm saying is, like, yet again, another loophole that's taken advantage of that was not closed before it opened. And that to me is the bigger problem, and that's something that's getting enough attention, but it's just the way we've operated the last couple of years in college football.
Yeah. Yahoo Sports also is reporting that Lane Kiffin reportedly instigated the NFL player eligibility lawsuits. Would that change your opinion on anything if it were proven to be real?
No, because to me, for him to be able to get an NFL player back, it's not surprising that, and look, I don't know what Lane's involvement was, like, in a roundabout way. Like, does the buck stop with the head coach? Sure, but no, I mean, in order to have that, you have to have a court ruling, so no, I'm not that surprised, frankly. Yeah. Does that surprise you?
Maybe if the recruiting portion of it was instigated or led with something along the lines of, hey, and it was in Baton Rouge, we have an attorney that I can pretty much guarantee you is going to allow this, therefore you'd be able to play for us. I mean, it would make it ugly. I don't think I'd like it. I do think that it's a little bit of conflict of interest. If you're coaching under the NCAA umbrella and you are proven to be pushing lawsuits against said umbrella, that's a little backwards. But we need to see exactly how that was proven. We need to see what's real and what's not there, and we don't have that information yet. Thursday, August 27th, right here on Jax. Listen online, JaxFM.com. We've got Charles Kelly, Jacksonville State head football coach, coming up in 11 minutes. We'll talk to him about this season's opener. Also, Brent Dearman, UNA coach, at 9:30. Keep it locked right here on Jax for more college football conversation. All right, welcome back in. McElroy and Kubelik in the morning. I want to follow up with this reporting from CBS Sports. We had John Talty on yesterday. This came out after we actually had Talty on the show. He and Chris Hummer reporting Thursday, August 27, 7:23 a.m. right here on Jox. Tell your home smart speaker to enable the Jox skill. Listen that way. Kiffin and the Tigers reached out to multiple players on NFL rosters or their representation in an effort to get them to bring a lawsuit against the NCAA and return to school, per sources. This included some of the players who ended up in the Louisiana lawsuit, which sources have pointed out wasn't tried in Baton Rouge by accident. I think, Greg, in order for me to have a strong opinion on this or stronger opinion on this, I would need more detail.
For sure.
But I'm probably still going to stick to sounds bad, not a good look, but not overly surprising. I do think it's still a conflict of interest. Not that anything can be done about it. I mean, what's going to be done?
Yeah, I'm with you. To me, looks bad, sounds bad, troublesome. It's not the way you want the program to be perceived, like a by any means necessary type of approach. I think all of that is fair. Like, all of it is fair. It looks bad, sounds bad. Is it normal? I don't know. I've never been a coach. I've never tried to encourage people to file a lawsuit. So it's just a new frontier. And they're always looking for loopholes, right? Coaches are and teams are, and advantages, trying to create advantages. All that this is not new. It's just in a different format now. So that's what I think is so unique about it, is we just never seen anything quite like this. But the bigger question to me, Cole, is, we've already discussed, is the juice worth the squeeze, all of that. Is it potentially an indicator that Lane is not as excited maybe about his roster as the outside world might be? Are we capable of connecting the dots there as we kind of move it back to the football field?
I mean, I hate to, sort of go lawyer here, but I'll answer that with the question: what else could it mean? I mean, honestly, yeah. And I would honestly say, and you kind of accidentally brought this up a little bit earlier, it would be more of a depth Band-Aid than anything else.
Right.
And maybe more of a situational Band-Aid. Like, Xavier Harris is a very different body type. We talked about, as much as they're through all the dumb, that Daquan Wright can really help them because they don't have another guy like him. Like Trey, and people clap back at me on Twitter like Tre'Davious Green. Tre'Davious Green doesn't do the stuff Daquan Wright does. And you know what? Daquan Wright can't do the things Tre'Davious Green can do.
No one
which
can
is
do
super exciting and fun. Correct. But like, Lane also knows you need some hard hat guys. Like, who are your guys that are doing some of the stuff people don't like? Daquan Wright can do that. And Xavier Harris, albeit for a limited amount of snaps, can do some of that too. So
sure.
at a place that not a lot of people are really good at doing it, and that's on the interior of the defensive line. And what better way to get a bunch of young 5-stars ready than to have a guy in front of them that's done it? So I think it would be – I don't think you'd be inaccurate, but I think it may be a little bit more from the depth perspective of he just coached a team that made a playoff run and probably saw a couple of spots where it's like, man, if we'd had one or two more guys there, not even because someone got hurt late, but just to remove a little bit of the wear and tear in November.
Sure.
And have guys ready to say, okay, hey, he needs to get 30, 40% of the snaps this week because we got to back off so-and-so. If we're going to be in this playoff, we need him full freaking go, like ready to be in there and be an 85, 90% of the snap guy once we get into that game.
Yeah, and if you look at where was Ole Miss, and just having lived in the league, where did Ole Miss struggle the last couple of years? It was with depth. They had great starting players. Their starting 22 was elite in some years. But the depth pieces weren't there. That's why they lost to Georgia in the regular season last year, because their defensive tackles had to play 60-plus snaps. The way Lane plays his offense, the defense can be out there a lot. So having an extra D tackle body, an extra DN body, really helpful. And then also, too, Tre'Davious Green, he is a unique specimen. I think he's incredible. But I tell you where I don't want Tre'Davious Green. That's attached in line, blocking the in-man on the line of scrimmage. Like, I want him to be a glorified X-receiver in the red zone. Like, I want to split him out.
Yeah,
I don't
more
want
of a move
him.
Guy.
Yeah, I want him as my Jimmy Graham. I don't want him as a Tony Gonzalez. I want him as Jimmy Graham. I want him out there, away from the trouble, so he doesn't get rolled up blocking the backside of a run. Like, I want him out there away from danger because he is a matchup nightmare. So if I can get Daquan Wright in there, now I can run a little more 12 personnel. I think it could be helpful.
All right, we're going to continue that conversation, but when we come back, Jacksonville State travels to the Fargo Dome this weekend. We'll have their head coach, Charles Kelly, on to discuss and preview their 2026 season next right here on Jocks. All right, welcome back in. McElroy and Kublik in the morning. Appreciate you guys tuning in. 7:32, Thursday, August 27th, right here on Jocks. Saturday, 4:30 on CBS Sports Network. You're going to get the Jacksonville State Gamecocks at the North Dakota State Bison in a fun game at the Fargo Dome. And the head coach of the Jacksonville State Gamecocks, Charles Kelly, joining us now on the Higginbotham Hotline to discuss. Coach, let's start with this because there are a lot of aspects of your team I want to discuss.
Yep.
The most common answer that Greg and I get from football coaches this day and age that we never used to get is, I don't know. There's so many aspects of teams that you guys you can't realistically know what you have yet. What was your biggest, maybe you weren't sure about with your team that you left fall camp with, okay, I feel like I now know about my team?
Well, I think, first of all, in the offseason, what we had to do was we had to improve in the lines of scrimmage. We played well at times last year, but if you go back and watch the games that we really struggled, I didn't think we were big enough. I didn't think we had enough depth. I think coming out of fall camp, both on the offensive and defensive line. I feel like we have a lot more depth than we had last year, and probably on offense in the perimeter, the skill positions, just having more skill to create more balance, with the passing game along with, how we run the football.
Coach, you're the first coach I've talked to this offseason that said, hey, we really need more depth along the lines of scrimmage. It's amazing. It's across the board. Doesn't matter what level you're at, what team you're at, what region of the country you're at. Everyone needs more depth. And yet, still, you ran the ball very effectively last year. So even without the depth that you wanted, you still were able to get it done. How did you do it?
Well, we had some young guys that came along and played really good for us. Lance Johnson, J.R. Jernigan, some of those guys were true freshmen last year, and they played, they developed as the season went along. And, I just think that, nowadays you have to be able – football is still about moving the lines of scrimmage. If you're on offense, you got to move the defense. If you're on defense, you got to knock them back. It's still – that's what it takes to win games. So, we work hard on that, and that's, what we tried to do.
Visiting with Charles Kelly, head coach of the Jacksonville State Gamecocks. You have a big advantage under center with Caden Creel coming back. Played in 14 games last year, over 1,500 yards passing, 9 touchdowns. But this is a different place to go play, even from just other loud environments. The structure of it is just different and odd. What have you guys kind of tried to do to recreate it, to kind of get a feel for what it's going to be like playing in the Fargo Dome?
Well, first of all, we are excited about having Caden back. I think he's grown a lot as a quarterback over the off season. He's really worked hard. Yes, the Fargo Dome. I went up there the last time that I was played in there was in 2005. It is one of the most unique places to play in college football. And they have a great program. They have a great tradition. I would say besides Alabama, they probably are the most consistent football team in the country over the last 25 years, maybe Georgia here of late. But what I think going into this game, what I've told our whole team, but including Caden, you've got to be able to control what you can control. Okay, you can control your preparation, you can control your eyes, you can control execution, and you can control how you respond. Just worry about what you can control. You can't control the crowd noise. You can't control the environment. Just control the things that you can control. We've tried to create that in our preparation, as we go up there, but, it's just something you have to execute in.
It's got to be one of the coolest opportunities ever, though, to know that the program that we all look up to and all admire, you got a chance to spoil their FBS debut. What better opportunity is there than that, Coach? So has that been a message to the team?
Well, Greg, it is a great opportunity for our program, for our university, for our letterman. It's a great opportunity. But, and I know you've heard this before, but I don't want our team to focus on outcomes and results. I want us to focus on what we have to do to execute. And when you start thinking about those things, then you lack focus on what it takes the things that it takes to win a game like this. So that's kind of what we've been focused on.
Charles Kelly, Jacksonville State head football coach, joining us on the Higginbotham Hotline. You got a lot of your secondary back, which for you personally, I know gives you a lot of comfort because that has been your focal point for years, not only coordinating defense but coaching the secondary. What will that experience allow you to be, either all across the board defensively with how you call it, how you run it, or mainly up front with what you're going to be capable of doing?
Well, I don't think there's any doubt. Listen, you win games on the line of scrimmage, all right, but you lose them in the back end. If you break down in the back end, bad things are going to happen. I've always believed this. Your corners dictate the parameters of what you can do defensively. You got to have guys that can play on the perimeter. You got to have a safety, number one, that can get people lined up, that can play the ball in the deep part of the field, all right, and tackle in space. I think we've got some guys coming back, that can do that. Traquan Fagans is a proven guy. And then, Caleb Nix, really good athlete, probably one of the, top 5 or 6 smartest guys that I've ever coached in the secondary. Having that experience, it's just like you were talking about Caden Creel on offense. These guys on defense, you can't coach experience. You can the only way you get that is to play the game, and having that experience back, is a big plus for us.
And how difficult is it to retain that experience nowadays, Coach, with Indiana breaking through last year and everyone now looking at those older rosters as the ones you kind of want to highlight and going and trying to find guys that have played a lot of football? How rare is it to have a group that has that much playing time together?
That was hard to do. I'll give a lot of, I've got to give a lot of credit to those young men because, they felt like that they got an opportunity here and they felt like they could grow. I think we, as a coaching staff, have shown a path of development to be able to get people to the next level. You can do it from here just as anywhere else. But you're right, it is a big challenge. I mean, we lost 7 guys last year for, a little over $4 million. That's not that. It just is what it is. So, listen, we can't make the rules. All we can do is adjust and go by them. And there's no use complaining about it. It is what it is in college football. As long as we know the rules and we can adjust.
How many reps you think your defense took against counter and power this week?
A good bit. That's what we do offensively. So I would hope. We're a little bit different schematically than they are, defensively and somewhat offensively. But I would hope when people watch us play, I would hope that they would say, all right, both these teams have similar characteristics in how they play the game.
Right.
So, that's how we practice, and that's how it's kind of how we live.
I'd be interested to know, Coach, how would you defend you in the red zone? DeAndre Johnson had over 700 yards receiving last year. For folks who don't know, at wide receiver, he's 6'8", 215. You also go David Alpers at tight end, 6'6", 260.
Yep.
You want to talk about making your quarterback's life a little bit easier, and Caden Creel, what he's able to do once you get close to the red zone? I imagine there are not a lot of individual matchups out there for those two, specifically when they're on the field at the same time.
And that is one thing. I felt like DeAndre grew as a player last year. He struggled somewhat early. He'll be the first to tell you. But towards the second half of the year, he became a really good player. He'd not played a lot of football, so he was a developmental guy too. And having David, we also have a true freshman out of Midland City, Alabama, a guy named Andrevius Smith that's 6'6", 252 pounds. He played quarterback in high school at times. He was a baseball player. He's very athletic and got good hands. So all those guys, anytime you have length and size down in the red zone, it gives you a chance, to be a threat, especially with Creel being able to run.
Well, Coach,
how do you
go ahead, Greg.
How do you recognize that? You see the length. Obviously that'll make you salivate when you see a guy with that kind of length. But he's playing baseball. He's playing quarterback. How do you project a prospect like that as he transitions to your level of football?
Well, I think what we try to do is, great football players have critical factors, and you look at those factors. There are a lot of quarterbacks, guys that played high school quarterback that are playing defensive back in the NFL. And there are a lot of guys that, are high school quarterbacks that, there's some guys that have turned into offensive tackles. I think what you have to do is you have to have the criteria, what you're looking at by position. All right, do they have the size? Do they have the athletic ability? I think, I know Cole knows this, and, I'm a big guy. I love watching guys play basketball because I can tell if a guy can play man-to-man after about 5 minutes of watching a basketball game. So I like multi-sport athletes. You can tell if they have hand talent. You can tell their eyes. It's hard to have good eyes and or not have good eyes and hit a baseball or shoot a basketball. So I look at all those things, and where we're at right now, you gotta turn over rocks and find everybody you can.
Have you let David Alpers talk to the team at all about this place, this game? I mean, a South Dakota State guy. I mean, he obviously understands that program, what's going on, and all about it.
He has, and I was one thing I'll say about David. I mean, even though he transferred in here last year, he was voted by our leadership committee to be on our leadership team. That first of all, that's a huge honor. After just going through the spring, that's what kind of guy he is. He has spoken a lot to the leadership team about the environment and what it takes in that place, and he has shared that with the team. So he's a mature guy. That's going to be what we can control is how we respond, and that's kind of been his emphasis to everybody.
Coach, great stuff, man. We wish you the best. I'm excited to watch this game for a lot of reasons, but I want to see you guys have success. Obviously, we're rooting for you and rooting for the Gamecocks. So good luck this weekend, and I look forward to catching up with you again soon.
Thank you. Y'all have a good day.
There you go. Charles Kelly, Jacksonville State head football coach. It's tough to decide what to make of it, but they got some talent, and you got some size. You got an experience at quarterback. Coach Kelly sitting there telling us they have upgraded the line of scrimmage where they thought it was important to be able to do that from last year. However, there is a monumental statistical hurdle in which they will need to overcome. One that will boggle your mind as it pertains to North Dakota State. I will share that with you next on Jax. All right, welcome back in. McElroy and Kubelik in the morning. FCS football kicks off tonight. 22 FCS football games tonight. We've already made you aware of that. I'm excited about this Jacksonville State, North Dakota State game for a couple of reasons. We mentioned some of the perimeter weapons, quarterback returning for Jacksonville State. Going to the Fargo Dome, tough, never easy. Thursday, August 27th, 7:49 a.m. right here on Jox. You can listen online, joxfm.com. The app is in your app store, iPhone, Android. You can download that for free. A lot of different ways that you can listen on the go. Watch live on YouTube, search Jox945 each and every day. I told you before we left that this would not be easy for Charles Kelly and the Jacksonville State Gamecocks. Statistically, some things working against them. First, before I get to that, there are statistically some things that are working for Bill Smith Buick GMC. They are the dealer of the year again. That is 6 years in a row. That is 9 times overall. Alabama's largest GMC dealer with Alabama's largest discounts. 75% of their sales come from repeat customers. That tells you what the customer service is. Right now, brand new GMC Sierra, 1500 crew cab, SLT, loaded with the X31 off-road package. Bill Smith discount that by $15,000. That's better than 20% off MSRP. Or you can get $16,000 off a new Denali 1500 pickup. Or the heavy-duty Sierra 2500 Denali Ultimate, biggest discount ever, $12,000 below sticker. Nowhere else are you going to find a dealer giving you discounts this deep. Bill Smith celebrating 70 years in business since 1956. Family-owned, locally owned. General Manager Andy Cole and his team going to make sure you leave a satisfied customer. Scott Wren's going to manage the best service department around. Huge used car superstore with plenty of vehicles to fit any budget. Savings and customer service well worth the short drive of I-65 to exit 310 in Coleman. And GMC's 9-time dealer of the year. Or shop online at BillSmithBuickGMC.com. The numbers don't work in Jacksonville State's favor right now, guys. North Dakota State, in their home openers all time, they've lost 22 of them.
Okay.
They've tied 5 times.
Okay.
They've won 101.
Oh. Bit lopsided.
That's actually, so it's gettable. You're saying there's a chance.
Probably not, considering they've won 27 consecutive home openers. The last
Against who?
The last loss in a home opener for North Dakota State was to Emporia State in 1998.
Yeah, that was last century.
I'd say Emporia State, good team that year.
You like their run game? Quarterback play solid?
No, I'm just going to go out on a limb and say they probably had like a 5'10", 240-pound D tackle that was wrecking shop.
Good chance, potentially. But that doesn't play into the favor of Jacksonville State. But I'll tell you, with Cam Cook at quarterback, DeAndre Johnson, some of those weapons that we mentioned out wide, a lot back in the secondary. I'm interested to watch that game. I mean, that's a week 0 game that I'll have on, that I want to tune into, check out. And listen, there are other ones that I think are going to sort of raise our antennas a little bit, like New Mexico State's at Florida State. That's on the CW at 6 p.m. Saturday night. Dan Mullen has said that both quarterbacks are going to play, Jackson Arnold and Anthony Orji. Memphis at UNLV, that's 9 o'clock on Fox Saturday night, week 0, this upcoming weekend. NC State, Virginia, I mean, you got 2 conference opponents that are going at it. That's intriguing. Is North Carolina of a big a mess as it appears to be? We think TCU under Jaden Craig can be really good with a new offensive coordinator. That's the Harvard transfer quarterback. You know, what's the USC defense, specifically defensive front, going to look like at 2 o'clock on NBC against San Jose State? So this is going to be a fun day of football. I like how it's kind of spread out Saturday, Greg, with some teams that have some interest. Like, okay, can Hawaii push Stanford? 6 o'clock on the ACC network? I mean, that's Hawaii's been crawling back a little bit, man. Like, they were down for a little bit, but then Timmy Chang has come back and made that thing a little bit closer to what it was a decade ago. So I'm intrigued to see multiple teams in their spots this weekend.
Well, honestly, too, you have some real playoff contenders. I mean, a G6 team is going to the playoff. So can North Dakota State be one of those teams? A lot of people think UNLV is one of the favorites coming out of the Mountain West with the newly formed Pac-12. There is no Boise in their way anymore. There is no, there isn't the same hurdles that have existed the last couple of years for the running Rebels. So that couple USC, I think, is a legitimate playoff contender. I really like what they have, assuming they've made the progress that they say they've made along the defensive line. So, like, there's a couple things to watch, and I actually agree with you. I think that there are some really good games. I mean, there's 5 games. There's only 8 games overall at the FBS level, but 5 of the 8 have a point spread of 9 points or less. So you have a couple of games that are probably going to come down to the wire. So if you're a casual college football fan, yeah, maybe not the Saturday you envision parking yourself on the couch, but if you're a hardcore like us, like, there's some reason to watch a lot of these games.
Yeah, and especially, too, it's just an appetizer to the season to kind of get things going. I actually think it will allow you to focus in on some different portions of it that you may not normally watch, which would be UNLV's quarterback situation, the Fargo Dome, the USC defensive line, Jaden Krager, quarterback for TCU. We get to lock in on a couple of those things because some of the other stuff that would grab our attention not going to be happening this weekend. Another one that's going to be happening in Huntsville Saturday night, Sanford and UNA at Joe Davis Stadium. We got Brent Dearman, UNA's head football coach, coming up at 9:30 today. So stay locked here, and we'll get you that one. But as you begin to break down some of these games coming up this weekend, we talked a lot about North Carolina and TCU yesterday. I'm really intrigued, Greg, to see this USC defense. I realize it's San Jose State, but that defensive line, does it appear to be different? Is it really different? You know, is that defense overall continuing to take steps to be one that can really push for USC to maybe be in the playoffs and then maybe win multiple playoff games?
And we might, I mean, let's be real. San Jose State, in times, it's been okay, right? They've had a couple of years, but they're coming off 3-9. It wasn't a good year last year. So it's hard to get a good sense of what San Jose State's going to present to them. They might look dominant up front, and we're like, all right, well, you know, look how different. I'm more looking at the defensive structure. Gary Patterson, the former TCU head coach, is now the defensive coordinator. How is he structuring the defense? I'll be watching the nickel position very closely because that's a very important position in their 4-2-5 arrangement. I want to see, like you said, what's the girth look like up front defensively? Are they a group that could get pushed around? Because you know some of the teams they play are certainly going to try. So I think SC's real this year. I think they're live. I think NC State's a possible sleeper in the ACC. Virginia won 11 games last year. I think TCU's a sleeper in the Big 12. Like, there's a lot of intrigue. If you dive deep enough, there's some intrigue on this matchups this weekend.
No doubt. And we've got more time to talk about all of them. We'll continue breaking those down. One thing we have not taken a closer look at are win totals in the SEC and across college football. Our realistic thoughts of what some of these teams accomplish. Be game week for most of them next week. But when we come back, what are the win totals for SEC schools? Where do we think that ends up? What side are the majority of these programs going to be on at the end of the season? We'll discuss it next on Jax.